All right, so now let's talk about the conversation that Farhan had with reporters. The story comes from Alex Pavlovich, the aforementioned Alex Pavlovich. We were talking about him. It's not about the MTV The Challenge. He is talking about Giants baseball. So he asked, I don't know if he asked or if that was just, with some of the other reporters in the conversation, but it turned to the rotation. And the Giants have a lot of guys. Alex Wood, Logan Webb. They sign Ross Stripling. They sign Sean Manea. They have coming back from last year. Who's the guy that got hurt?
Desclafani.
Desclafani. So, they have all these guys, and then they have guys like Junis possibly in the bullpen to be like a long guy. They have guys like Sean Jelly who could possibly be in the mix there as well. So they talked about him, and Farhan is quoted as saying, I think it's really going to be a mix, mentioning like the starting pitching. There may be some situations in which we go to a 6-man rotation for a period of time. The drawback is that you're down to a 7-man pen. But if you have rested starters who are going deep into games and you have guys in the bullpen that can throw multiple innings, that can help mitigate that. I think there will be times we do that. There will be times when we tandem guys and try to use 2 of our starters to get through an entire game and give the rest of the pen a day off. So that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Using if you do have 6 starters, using 2 in one game and just going like, all right, Logan Webb, you got the ball, you're throwing until you're done, and Alex Wood, you're cleaning it up no matter what. Like so we're saving the entire bullpen, and we can do that because we have the multiple starting pitchers that we have on this roster. I forget the Cobb. They also have Alex Cobb.
Right.
And so what do you think about that? Because a lot of the times last year, it definitely felt like the bullpen was so tired and asked to get outs that maybe weren't there for them.
Yeah, and I think what they did too, which was great, is that they couldn't really go out and they weren't going to overpay for bullpen arms. Yeah, they were kind of in on Kenley Jansen. Where did he end up? Boston, right? Yeah, they were kind of in on another couple of relievers, and then they end up getting Taylor Rogers. So they've got the Rogers brothers, and they've got Camilo Duvall in the back end.
Instead of back to our podcast idea, maybe it's the Taylor and Tyler Rogers podcast instead of Logan Webb.
Yeah, just call it Rogers Deuce.
Yeah, we may have to pitch them that.
There you go. I get them on our network. Let's do this.
Let's do it.
So they didn't really, do a huge revamp of the bullpen. And there's a lot of arms that, a lot of guys at the end of the season that they kind of took a look at. I'm going to punch up the roster real quick because I don't want to leave anybody out. So when you look at it, some arms, Scott Alexander, who else was in there? And Luke Jackson, another reliever for the Giants that they picked up in free agency. He's coming off of surgery, so it's going to be another maybe month or 2 into the season. He's ready.
Everyday Brebbia.
Jacob Junis is now can be like a true long man. Speaking of long man, you've got Sammy Long, Slinging Sammy. Tyler Rogers, Taylor Rogers, Zapucki, who was really coming around. Cole Waits, another guy who was coming around during the end of the season. So when you've got Alex Wood, Logan Webb, Stripling, Manea, Wood, Desclafani, and then you've got Kyle Harrison too. It's almost exciting. It's like, hey, are we taking a step back towards getting starting pitchers to go like 6 or 7 innings?
Yeah.
Maybe 8 innings. I mean, are we going to like lengthen guys out because we have more starting pitching?
Yeah.
And that'd be kind of fun too, to see, hey, Logan Webb, he's slated to start today. If he can get 8, cool. If he can only get 5, hey, Alex Cobb is going to come in and he's going to pitch the last 4 innings, and that's going to save the bullpen and rest them up. Yeah, I think this is a step in the right direction because the bullpen was taxed in 2021, which then kind of bled over into 2022. And they threw a lot of innings in both of those seasons combined. So to add more starting pitching arms and be able to kind of mix it up that way. And I know Farhan in the interview said, this isn't a strategy. Hell, it is. It's a strategy. I mean, that's what that strategy is.
What I wonder is, we saw, I think the Rays were the first team to do the opener thing where you start off with the bullpen guy and then you bring in your starter to be the long man.
Yeah.
I wonder if this is Farhan going like, oh, here's the zag to that strategy. We're actually going to have a 6-man rotation, though it's still going to be a 5-man rotation because in one of these games, 2 starters are going to flesh this whole game out. And thus it's still, they're still going to all have the same rest, but that's how that's an interesting thing to do, especially if you have guys that you trust, because it could completely backfire. Like if you don't have a starter you can trust, you're like, okay, Logan's going 6, and then we're closing with DeSclafani these last 3, and then DeSclafani can't get out of the 1 inning, then it screws up your whole thing because then you got to bring the bullpen back in. So it's a fascinating idea, and I'm interested to see how it plays out. So he says, yes, that's something we've heard a lot from our relievers over the last couple of years is there's just a lot of value, and it's kind of intuitive in games where pretty much the entire pen has the day off. If you have a guy who throws 5, then a guy come in behind him and throw the final 4. That's huge. That's huge for the entire bullpen. This isn't a strategy or matchup type of thing as much as it is a load management thing and a way to keep everybody healthy. And like you said, it absolutely sounds like a strategy. And I'm going to give it to Farhan if this is where teams are going. And they're like, oh, look at what the Giants are doing. They're saving their pen every 3 or 4 starts just by, doubling up on the starters in games. We're going to start doing that. And then it goes that other way. And then they're like, yeah, who's doing openers? You guys who do openers, you guys are stupid. This is the way to go.
Well, and that's the thing too, because you've got Alex Wood, right? He's a starter, but he's traditionally had issues third time through the lineup. So if you can get him in the 5th inning, in the 6th inning, and have him finish out a game where especially if you're up like, say it's a 5-1 ball game, right? You're up 5-1. Logan Webb has thrown 106 pitches, couldn't get out of 6, didn't quite have his stuff, walked a couple of batters, walked 3 batters, whatever. And then Alex Wood could come in and go twice through the lineup to close this thing out. Then, hey, that's a fantastic strategy. It blows up in your face if something bad happens and you get to extra innings and now you've got to start using relievers.
Yeah.
Then you've used 2 starters and a bunch of relievers. But I think that's going to be, that's going to be the rarity, of course, when something like that happens. But in theory, it's a fantastic strategy, even though Farhan says it's not a strategy, which is bullcrap, because it is a strategy to have a 6-man rotation, but to use it uniquely instead of every 6 days, every day for 6 days in a row, somebody different starts a ball game.
And then there is the elephant in the room who's chomping at the bit to make the big league team. You mentioned him, Kyle Harrison. I imagine like that's the dream, right? Is Harrison is able to be a big leaguer sometime this year, and then it's just your ideas on steroids now because you have this young guy who's missing bats, and you add him to the mix.